But life is really short and precious, and if we don't ever let ourselves try to see where the boundaries are and our limits are, we won't know, and we'll stay in our little bubble, and that's okay and does serve and protect you at certain times, but it doesn't serve you for your entire life. Hello, and welcome back to another week of Calling in Sick. I'm your host, Alex Wildeson. I am clearly back from London town, and I'm back in Austin, but I am full of stories to share with you guys. So this week, I'm going to take you on my adventure abroad, share my highs, my lows, what I would do differently, my top 5 tips that I left my trip with, so you can unlock successful trips in the future too. But before we dive in, quick housekeeping. Last week was our inaugural week. That feels so British to say, of launching 2 episodes a week. Y'all had such an overwhelmingly positive response to the Ask Alex episode that I chatted with the team and we decided we can't just give that to only our Substack subscribers. Y'all loved it and y'all all asked the questions. So we are going to be releasing, as a midweek treat for you guys, 9 a.m. on Wednesdays, an Ask Alex episode every single week. However, our Substack subscribers will obviously get some exclusive content. So some of those questions will be only going onto Substack, some behind the scenes, some fun stuff for just y'all as a special treat. But for the rest of y'all, you get a lion's share of the Ask Alex questions that you send in. And that second episode is something I've been dreaming of for a year, but I didn't know how I'd be able to record 2 episodes a week sustainably with chronic illness. And this has been the most natural, best thing ever, and we're able to do this second episode because of y'all, and that makes it even more special. So thank you for being a part of the Ask Alex questions, for sending in what you want answered on Substack, on Instagram and socials. You guys are making it happen. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. As a thank you, my Alex's picks for this week are all about hacking sleep, because when you're traveling, if you're like me, sleep is hard to come by. And I am afraid to admit it, but I heavily drugged myself with Benadryl the entire time we were in London because my body would not adjust to the time change. It's very frustrating. So every single night we were there, I was up until 1 or 2 in the morning while St. Coop was snoozing and snoring away, finally take some Benadryl, and then I'd sleep until like 11:30 a.m. So I got the rest I needed, but it really shifted my available hours in a day. We'll chat about that in this week's episode. The things that were not supplements like Benadryl, though, that very much helped me get at least relaxed for my sleep, and I think kept me asleep when I did finally fall asleep, are these 2 things. First is the crown pillow, which I'm sure if you follow me on socials, you have seen it before. I do not leave home without my crown pillow. It goes to chemo and immunotherapy with me. It goes on every airplane, every car trip. It goes in my luggage, even if I'm going to my sister's house to have a sleepover and she lives 10 minutes away from me. I feel like I cannot sleep now without my sleep crown pillow. They are a pretty penny. However, the dollar per use, that maths very strongly. Return on sleep investment, strong. I'm working on a discount code for you guys. If I lock it in time, it will be in the description below. But you deserve a sleep crown because we spend a lot of time sleeping and duvet-daying. And I will show you how I sleep with the sleep crown on socials this week. TLDR, it's like a giant eye mask. And I tuck the sides into my ears to muffle sounds, but not mute sounds, because PTSD, kidnapping, breaking into my house. I need to be able to hear everything, but it quiets everything down just enough that I don't hear St. Coop snoring sounds, so I can sleep pleasantly. My second sleep pick is Sweet Bee's Magnesium Rub, and this stuff is a godsend. 1, not very scented. 1, no scent. You take a pea-sized amount, rub it on the bottom of your feet, on your calves if they're sore, your leggies if they're sore, 30 minutes before you are intending to close your eyes. And that shit keeps you locked in when you finally fall asleep. I'm a huge fan. It's small batch made by a family-owned business. I am working on a discount code for you guys on this one, but this is one that is a great add to your sleep regimen, not just because magnesium is absorbed really well for sleeping in that method, but 2, magnesium also really helps relieve some forms of pain. So it's a twofer, and let's face it, you deserve deep sleep and pain relief. Link in the description below. And now let's yap about London, because I got a lot to tell you guys about. First off, let's talk about the week leading up to London. Your girl was in the hospital, and I'm pretty sure I got aseptic meningitis for a second time because that migraine I had Could not shake it until I had a nerve block where I was put under lightly with propofol. We love a good propofol nap. Shout out to propofol. That somehow cured the migraine, and I woke up with relief in so many different ways. But besides that, I was throwing everything at myself that was wellness band-aids to try to get myself from in the hospital with aseptic meningitis to on the plane to go to London so my family could all be together. And that included eating so on my diet. Anti-inflammatory everywhere, no tiramisu, which has been my most current dessert obsession, specifically the one at Central Market. It's so good, and they never have it in stock. Thankfully, they did not have it in stock that week, so I could not indulge in it even if I wanted to. Also, used all my products by higher dose. My infrared sauna, my PEMF mat. I needed to have those band-aids on so that I could try to get back on the horse. And those things helped me go from like a 7, 6 in pain to like a 5 in pain. And we'll take that any day. Usually I get an IV before we travel, but I got that when I was getting my nerve block, so I got to skip out on that extra step this time, which was great because I saved packing until the last minute like I always do, to Cooper's chagrin and stress load. But even though there was all that chaos, we still got to London, and I was relieved. We went to London because it was a family thing and we needed to be there, but also this is the year I'm saying yes to everything. I'm trying to push myself out of my comfort zone because I have gotten so comfortable in the last several years staying inside my bumper lanes. I hate the yo-yo. I hate overdoing it and having to pay and it just being a constant up and down. It makes life unpredictable, makes it tricky, and it makes your symptoms real shitty for not just you, but everyone around you. So for the most part, I put a lot of restrictions and boundaries around my life so I stay firm in a somewhat maintainable, sustainable place, physically and mentally. However, with a baby, that sounds near impossible to control. So I am trying to say yes, push my body, and think of this as almost training for a marathon. So yes to coffees, yes to happy hours, yes to spontaneous trips, yes to anything and everything. I think if I can do this and get my nervous system at least in line with things not being totally in our control, then maybe the transition into the lack of complete control that we will have and fatigue that we will have with a baby will be a wee bit easier. Who knows, that might backfire and just really not work at all, but for right now, it is working, and I'm very happy and very proud of myself for doing this. The last time Coops and I went on a big trip, Europe, was 3 years ago for my brother's wedding. I was in a remission-like state, and so spoons were not as top of mind. I was able to do almost everything on our itinerary, see everything we wanted to, do everything we wanted to, asterisk. I'm sure that memory fades some of the disappointment on things we had to miss. However, I walked away from that trip thinking, wow, I can travel like this when I'm in this state, which is exactly why I anticipated being able to do very little on this trip because I was hospitalized a week ago and I've been in a flourish-like state, just started a new medication. It hasn't gotten all the way ramped up yet. I just didn't expect to be able to do that much, honestly. And so I was so happily surprised, as was all of my family, when I was able to keep up with like 80%, 85% of everything that we were doing. Granted, we approached the itinerary planning a lot differently, but overwhelmingly very surprised, very proud. And I had this sense of calm and realization that I can do hard things. I don't have to be in perfect health and in a remission-like state to live life. Sure, it might mean I pay a little bit more to play, but that doesn't mean I can't play at all. And I think that reminder is really important because when you have been in the heavy trenches of chronic illness, it's scary to go and do all of these things. You don't want to get pushed backwards any further than you are, especially when you have something like trying to prepare for a baby ahead. But life is really short and precious, and if we don't ever let ourselves try to see where the boundaries are and our limits are, we won't know and we'll stay in our little bubble. And that's okay and does serve and protect you at certain times, but it doesn't serve you for your entire life. As I mentioned, we did the itinerary thing a little bit differently, meaning we had 0 itinerary. Usually when Coops and I travel, we write a list of 5 things that we would love to be able to do if possible. This time, nothing. So when we got there and my mom said, "What do you guys want to do during our available times?" I kind of scrambled. I knew I wanted to spend a day at the museum. I knew I wanted to sightsee. But I also knew that doing both of those things and walking a lot would totally burn me out, and I needed to have a reserve of spoons available for other stuff. And so our itinerary was different. Now, I think that was challenging. Now, I think that was surprising for my family because I grew up in one of those families where you did the sightseeing, you bounced from place to place to place, dove deep, on to the next. Not a lot of resting. It was more of travel, not vacation, if you will. But I have married someone who is a live like the locals traveler, where it's vacation more than travel. So this was a meeting of the minds, and we did a little bit of both. And that seemed to work with my energy level and my symptoms that I had. But I want to know, what kind of traveler are y'all? Are you a see all the big things, get it all done traveler? Or are you a life of leisure, live like a local traveler? Let me know in the comments. So what were the two big things that we did? We did the British Museum and spent a whole day there looking at the Egyptian collection they had, which was phenomenally amazing. And we also went on the big bus tour of London to see as many sights as we possibly could without burning spoons by walking or jumping on and off transit. But on the other days, we explored tiny pockets of the city. I'm talking 0.3 mile radius in total. Ate at restaurants in that area, went shopping in that area, sat and just people watched in that area, or indulged in the pub culture that is everywhere in London. One of those days ended up being one of my favorite days I've ever had in international travel. We ate a food I had never had before. I'm embarrassed to admit I had never had Indian food before. Fell in love with it. And also y'all knew exactly where I was, which I need to know how and why. I posted a picture of food on a nondescript table, and 25 of you DM'd me. Are you at Dishoom? I was. And I loved it. But how did you guys know? That place was phenomenal, so cool. The history behind it, so interesting. We also shopped around in that neighborhood, and I found one of my new favorite elevated cozies company, American Vintage, and I bought an entire 2-piece set made of cord material. You will be seeing a lot of that on my Instagram because this year I also have a goal of dressing up a wee bit more in my office hours, aka 11 a.m. to 3 p.m., except for on podcast recording days like today, because I exclusively wear sweatsets when I'm recording my podcast, obviously. And I also just enjoyed the people watching, but the pub culture, that is a chronic illness girlies hack that I never expected would be a chronic illness girlies hack. When you're traveling, I think a lot of us carry this pressure or weight to not take fun away from other people on the trip. We want to let them explore, to have these new experiences, to go and do things when we don't want to be that weight that pulls the group down. Pub culture. That is the win for everybody. Everybody gets to indulge in some delicious beverages or meals. You are doing something that is living like the locals. You're spending quality time together. And if you are chronically ill, you can take a nap in a pub in the corner. Because why? A lot of these pubs have little fireplaces, little reading nooks. It is cozy. It's not like an American bar. They're more like a coffee shop almost in Austin, like an Austin coffee shop. Keep Austin weird coffee shop. Anyway, they're not just made for drinking. They're made for spending time on your own, but being in a third space around other people, which I think is probably really important in London, especially during the winter when there's like no sunlight and it's raining and cloudy all the time, and depression seems like it would be very easy to sneak in. So you get out of your house, you get out of your routine, go sit in a pub where it's happy sounds around you and you can read and sit by a fireplace, and how cozy and cute is that? Did I fall asleep in pubs? Yes, 2 times, and it was lovely. Some glorious naps were had. While all of my family had fun having beers and ciders, playing cards and chatting. And those days were so nice and so perfect because they helped me recharge and get the spoons for the days that I needed them. Like when we went to the museum and walked 10,000 steps, where I wore the wrong shoes. I wore rain boots because it was raining outside, and my foot hurt so badly after, even though I had a nerve block the week prior. Should have worn tennis shoes. Would have still looked cute with my OOTD. Very frustrated with myself. And unfortunately, I made the reverse mistake the next day when we went on the big bus tour. I convinced my entire family that that was the perfect way to see the sights of London. That we'd embrace our Nordic heritage and bundle up and sit on the top of the bus so we could see it all, but we would be fine. What I did not anticipate, how damp and rainy it was going to be that day. and that no matter how bundled up we were, that the water would most certainly seep in through the seats into our pants, and we'd have cold butts through our shoes and have cold feet, and make our entire body have an overwhelming sense of a chill. All of that said and done, though, it still was so much fun, and I would do that bus tour again and again and again. You plug in some headphones, you get to hear history and all these interesting stories about the sights that you're seeing. You get to check a lot of things off that bucket list without burning all the spoons. And I think on a sunny day, it would be a perfect activity to do. And honestly, even on a rainy day, it was really fun. I would just wear different shoes, clothes, and also bring like a towel and a blanket and a mug of tea and an umbrella hat and a couple other things like that that everyone has laying around their house and that they travel with, obviously. One of the funniest parts of the bus tour, though, was before the bus tour even started. And we were trying to figure out how to get to the bus. We were waiting at this bus stop, tracking the big bus on this app finder to try to meet up with it. And we kept missing the bus. And my mom, my sister, and Cooper and I could not figure it out. And we were belly laughing. So we would hail one of those London cabs, which London taxi drivers have to go through extensive training where they memorize the map of London. They have all these history facts that they know. It's a very like prestigious role to have there, and it's really cool. So we kept jumping in and out, talking to all these taxi drivers. They were cracking up at our misfortunes or our hilarious travel that we were doing. Hopping out of the cab, seeing a sight, taking some pictures, laughing, seeing some sights, taking some pictures, and then we'd run back and try to get onto the bus only to miss it again. We missed it 4 times, I think. But finally, we had one cab driver who was like, "I'm going to help you girls get on the bus." So he helped us navigate it. We all got on the bus, and it was an epic time. My favorite thing that we saw was probably Tower Bridge, which everyone thinks Tower Bridge is London Bridge, but it is not. Tower Bridge is the one that looks like there's towers on it, and London Bridge is the one down the river with all of the ropes. Second favorite thing that I saw was the castle where Anne Boleyn spent her last days before she was... I loved that time period of history when I was growing up, read all of these like historical nonfiction books about all the different queens of England, so getting to see that was amazing. And I got to touch a wall, and I just think, what if Anne Boleyn touched that wall in the exact same spot? How cool would that be? I might have touched some things in the Ancient Egyptian Museum exhibit, but don't tell them that. I just really wanted to touch something that was that old. Shh, that's a secret. It's take a blood oath right now. Thank you. Anywho, the bus tour was great. It's a really easy way to see a city without spending spoons, which brings me to my top 5 tips. 1, muscle through the jet lag on the first day. It doesn't matter what time zone you are traveling to, muscle through it, because you will be so pissed at yourself if you let yourself sleep. It ruins the rest of the week. Drink the coffee, get the anxiety by having a 4th cup, and just keep on going. And then sleep in the next day as late as you'd want. We did that by going to sleep at 10 p.m. the first night, somehow stayed awake for like 15 hours, which was unpleasant, and I felt like I was hallucinating by the end of the day. But then we slept in until 11:30 a.m. the next day, which was lovely. But one of my least favorite things about jet lag is I always feel really nauseous and dizzy, so I didn't love that part. The sleeping was really hard for me, mostly because the beds in Europe are typically 2 twin beds pushed together, and sharing a bed with a man who is 6'3" in a twin bed is just a recipe for fighting over the comforter. And when that person is snoring, also on top of the comforter fighting, other people might not sleep quite as well as other people would imagine. I don't know why I got into that tangent, but that's some side-eye for you, St. Cooper. So anyway, that made sleeping even harder and those weird jet lag symptoms stronger. My second tip, build in those days where you live like a local. Taking a day at your own pace, doing the people watching, all that stuff might sound really dumb, but when you're there and you're actually living like that, and you're actually spending a day like that, you feel so cool. You love it because you're getting to feel like you are this interesting European person sitting, watching all the people reading your book and drinking your coffee. Or at least I did. I really felt like that Amanda Bynes movie where she's in London visiting her dad. I cannot remember the name of that movie. It's been bugging me for actually 2 weeks straight. So if anyone knows the name of the movie I'm blanking on, please let me know. I think it's What a Girl Wants. 3, Sleep when you need to. The exploring can always wait. One of the best pieces of advice I have ever received is you can have a duvet day at home, or you can have a duvet day with a new view and new sounds. And that has always stuck with me because we do have this sense of pressure to do it all when we travel, since travel is few and far between when we have chronic illnesses. It's a physical expenditure and financial expenditure with money that usually is allocated to medical expenses or just life bills. So when we get the opportunity to travel or do something like that, we want to do everything and do it all and maximize all of the possible benefits that could come out of it. But you know what? You still get that sense of novel, unique newness by just hearing other sounds and seeing a different view. And you can do that from your duvet. Just book an Airbnb or a hotel or whatever with a window that looks at something interesting. And plus, all these cities are like super old, and I don't think that their monuments are going to go anywhere anytime soon. 4, there are usually accessible approaches to do the sightseeing. For example, I could have booked a wheelchair at the British Museum, and candidly, I really should have. That was a big mistake on my part. But that would have been a way to make it way more accessible. I wanted to see all the sights, so we did the big bus tour instead of popping on and off transit, burning spoons, burning money, honestly, and just getting exhausted and grumpy because I was going to be in pain at the end of the day if we did that. You don't have to miss out on everything just because you have a chronic illness. You just have to do it a little bit differently. 5, life is short. 80-20 rule, always when you're traveling. You guys know that I uphold a rather strict diet when I'm home. No gluten, no dairy, no sugar, no alcohol, or very low amounts of all of those things. When I travel, I throw all of those rules out the window. I would rather taste the food and pay the price than not experience that food at all. I'm so glad I did that because that allowed me to have Indian food for the first time, and now I'm obsessed with Indian food and I'm exploring the Indian food restaurants in Austin. And the best part is when you do travel outside of the US, really to most other countries, there's not this fear of what's in this food. There's not over-processed foods. There's not chemicals that are sprayed on everything. Everything is kind of, I guess, organic then. When I realized that on this trip, I had this sense of relief where I didn't have to have my guard up so much when we were picking up grumpy snacks and meals for the week. That's another big hack. Go to the grocery store. If you can't eat the foods that are out in the restaurant, just go buy some stuff that you can eat. And even though it might be the same foods that you're eating at home, it's going to be a little bit different and it's going to be delicious. Anyway, getting to have that guard lowered while there was really refreshing because when I got back to the States, I stumbled across an Instagram post, so you know it's obviously factual, that the US government just approved natural food dyes, which sounds all well and fine off the cuff, but then if you look a layer deeper underneath the hood, it's not, which is so American right now. Natural food dyes is not defined, nor is it regulated, meaning it can be made of not natural things. So when you see something like beet red, you would think, derived from beets because of the naming. Alas, it is not derived from a beet. It is a mold byproduct, but it is in the color of a beet. And when I read that, I just got engulfed in rage because that's the level of scrutiny we have to uphold right now in this country in order to eat foods that are safe and non-toxic and organic and whole and fueling for our chronically ill bodies, and to ensure that we're not putting more shit in our bodies that we can't handle because we're already at max overdrive. Anyway, here's to hoping food gets reformed at some point. I do fear we have bigger fish to fry right now, but maybe one day. I won't hold my breath, but I'll hold on to hope. Speaking of food, I am starving, ravenous chupacabra. So, one brain cell show, let's crank it out. It is something that is on BBC, so I'm not entirely sure how we can watch it here in the States, but I'm determined to find out how because it was so heartwarming and precious. The other night, Cooper and I have been on a big kick of David Attenborough of late, and last night we watched this baby animals one on Netflix, which I thought was going to be similar to Wild London, which is my one brain cell pick of the week, where it was going to be heartwarming and uplifting and show the story of survival and cute baby animals. No, it was the story of the circle of life and if those baby animals would live or not, and it was stressful and my heart rate was maxing out while laying in my bed trying to relax. That was not what I wanted. What I did want was another version of Wild London, which showed all of the cute wild animals that live on the streets in London, like foxes. Yeah, they're like raccoons there. And hedgehogs, how precious is that? There's hedgehogs all over London. And people in the burbs cut little holes in their fences to make a hedgehog highway so hedgehogs can go from backyard to backyard without risking their lives crossing the road. It is so cute. There's also a bunch of deer in London and green parakeets. I will admit, when I first saw the green parakeets in London, I thought for sure, because my brother lives kind of near the London Zoo, that there had been some kind of escape a la Madagascar by these birds, and they were trying to leave and fly away back home. And I was like, go birds, go back to your home. But no, these green parakeets are just native to London. Crazy. The more you know. Anyway, if you need something heartwarming, something's going to cheer you up, boost your mood, and just make your heart go, aw. Also because David Attenborough's voice and storytelling is like, aw, double aw. Check out Wild London. I will try to figure out how the hell we can watch it here in the States. Whenever I do, it will be linked in the description below. And on that note, I love you guys so stinking much. I missed you while I was in London. And I'm so happy to be back and catching up with you guys. And I will see you next week. Mwah. And that's a wrap. Thank you so much for joining me for another week of Calling in Sick. As a reminder, I would love for y'all to like, follow, subscribe, save, share with a friend, do all of the things. It truly helps grow this community, and it helps these episodes reach the people that need them the most, whether that's for an educational piece, to have a little laugh, or to not feel so alone. As a reminder, Calling in Sick sits on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify, and anywhere else where you can find your listens. From the bottom of my heart, I absolutely love you guys. Thank you so much for calling in sick with me every Monday. It's been an honor and a pleasure so far, and I can't wait to continue building this community with y'all. Love you.